Live here at the World Economic Forum in Davos. The theme for this year is improving the state of the world, rethink, redesign, rebuild. Lots of people coming here to try to figure out if they've learned the lessons from the financial crisis. Are there red flags we should be looking out for in the years to come? Are we missing the warning signs of another crisis? Some of the things being discussed here: 2,500 people from 90 countries, 30 heads of state. One of those heads of state is joining me now. I'm delighted to have with me President Jacob Zuma of South Africa. It's an absolute pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for being with us live here from Davos today.
Thank you very much to be with you.
One of the things we're discussing here in Davos is the recovery that we're seeing, the road to recovery. We've moved from recession, in fact, to a global economic recovery of sorts. From what you're seeing, do you think that the recovery signs that we've seen so far are in fact sustainable?
Yes, from our point of view, we think they are sustainable. I think that the financial crisis did make everybody look at what was happening in the economy, and I think all of us tried to do whatever we could to help the economy to recover. I think it's a recovery that has come as a result of efforts put in it, so I think it is sustainable.
One of the themes we're also discussing here this year is the rise of the emerging economies led by China. Of course, a lot of people are concerned that China's economy might in fact be overheating given the record growth we saw, just 10.7% last quarter. Are you concerned about that? And tell us your thoughts as well on China's expansion into Africa, something that is viewed with some skepticism in the European circles specifically.
Well, I'm aware that it is viewed with some skepticism, but there has been economies before that has grown and indeed impact on the world. The United States economy, for an example, did grow over the old Europe and became very big and impacted in the world. I think in the nature of the global and growth of the world, there are going to be bigger economies that are going to dominate. And I think it is the time for China to do so. I think there is also the Indian economy that is also emerging. I think we are, all of us in the world are relating to the Chinese economy as everybody has. I think even the United States has had the impact of the Chinese economy. So no one, if there is a bigger economy growing in the world, no one is going to escape its impact. But I think Africa is very much aware of that. Bear in mind that Africa has an experience of dealing with the economies that impacts on them, and China is one of them at its own time. We are very much aware. I think we are dealing with the China in a particular way. From our point of view, it is the rules that govern the markets, and China has decided to be part of the markets of this world. And I know that people are concerned about it, but I think we'll deal with the issues as we have dealt with many before.
President Zuma, let's talk about rescue packages. Governments around the world, most specifically perhaps in Europe and the United States, have dedicated trillions of dollars, have injected trillions of dollars through stimulus, through financial rescue packages. What is your view on these packages that we've seen in Europe and the US, and do you think that money has been well spent?
Well, I wouldn't have the details of how it has been spent in specific terms. But of course the comment we would have on this is that there has been indeed very huge rescue packages. Our concern thus far has been they've tended to be more national than international. They've not tended to follow the belief that we're now in a globalized world. The recession, for an example, was triggered in the developed world and impacted to everybody else. But when those packages were made, they did not include the developing countries. They were very exclusive to very national and perhaps smaller circles of certain countries. I'm not certain whether there were conditionalities put to these packages as to how the banks should behave so that they don't take us back to the problem. I hope those kind of conditionalities were there. But also, what is important to us is that we must not just pay lip service to globalized world when it is all nice. When there are difficulties, globalization is put on the back burner. We need to be saying, once we have the economy is coming or anything globally, we must be able to deal with it. I was happy when I arrived here because I heard comments being made that, look, we needed to look at these packages in a different way, that they should actually take into account, in particular, the plight of the ordinary people,
right,
the taxpayers. I think that is what should have been taken into account. But of course, I'm sure the fact that the economy is now picking up, recovering, is because, among others, of those packages. But I'm just saying we could have done better. But of course, they've helped to some degree.
Let's turn our focus inward a little bit to South Africa. Now, I know what I'm going to ask you is something that you get asked a lot, but I'd like to talk about the idea of job creation. Now, 500,000 jobs was a number that you mentioned as a target. Clearly, a lot of jobs have been created through the expanded public works program and the infrastructure investments on the part of the government. But clearly, also, a lot of jobs have been lost in the past year. Where do we stand at the moment? What's a realistic figure? What are you targeting right now?
Well, at the moment, we are aware that there has been the creation of jobs to a large extent, whilst at the same time, there were jobs that were being lost. And we accept this, that our targets, therefore, were not necessarily met at the point which we had said the job opportunities would be 500,000, etc. Now, given the recession that we have gone through, I don't think it has been, therefore, easy to say this is what we are doing. Right. We know, for an example, that there is still the loss of jobs that are happening, because whilst the economy is picking up, but we know that the jobs will follow. They will not immediately turn the corner as the economy turns the corner. And therefore, the question of the exact numbers is what we are looking at, and we are aware that it is a challenge. But as you know, we have established a department of economic development. One of his tasks is actually to look at the job creation. And we are doing everything to ensure that we do not lose sight of that. We have 700 billion rand that we have put aside for the infrastructure. That makes us look at the possibility of creating more jobs as we roll out the infrastructure program in our country. So we are very optimistic that we'll be able to make it.